Before we get into the topic, let me just preface this by saying that I have not watched, nor will I watch, the live-action Mulan. In fact, I purposefully don't watch any of the live-action Disney movies. I went to see Maleficent in theatres, I think I saw Jungle Book when it came on the telly, and that's it. The reason being, not just that they are awful, but because they are that way by their very nature. They are not pieces of art made for their own sakes, or even true retellings of old stories. They are merely made to capitalise off beloved names, and that's it. And you know something? I don't blame Disney. There are a lot of things I blame Disney for, namely for at best being complicit in and at worst enabling human rights violations before thanking the main perpetrators for the privilege. But I don't blame them for making these movies. They are, above everything else, a company. They should be held to standards of basic human decency, but they shouldn't be asked to stop producing a product that people consume. And despite hating these things, people consume them like a group of stoned 20-somethings consume household snacks. And the very same people then turn around and complain that something they knew was going to be awful is awful. Its predecessors were awful, the franchise it's a part of is awful, and yet there is still disappointment when the next one turns out to be awful. Now, I understand people's hopes for Mulan. They said, oh, we're going to pay more attention to the ballad, we're going to include more Chinese culture, we're going to use traditional techniques from old Chinese martial arts movies like wire work. We promise this one will be better. But here's the thing. If you keep nagging a lazy, unemployed boyfriend or girlfriend to shape up and start working, but you don't leave them, they have no incentive to get better as long as you keep paying for them to live. People keep giving their money to this franchise. Disney is above all a business, and it's like going up to the devil and saying, "How dare you be the devil?" Stop that. Now, don't get me wrong, you do have a right to complain if a product you paid for is not good. But you lose your right to complain if you keep buying that same product just with a new coat of paint. And guys, if you watch these movies purely out of morbid curiosity, or genuinely like them, or love to hate them, I'm not here to take that away from you. That's just my point of view on why they are shit, and my explanation for why I don't watch them and never will. So with that out of the way, let's go back to a time when Disney actually made an effort. The topic of this video is something I don't see many people talking about, and that is a shame because not only is Mulan the best Disney heroine, but she also has some of the best Disney men as well. We all talk about how the classic princesses are shafted by the very stories they're in, but some of these guys don't even get a name. I think the best one before this movie was probably Prince Eric, but this movie is full of great male characters. This is how you write a great male supporting cast without overshadowing your female lead. Let's start with Shang, who I will admit I had a little crush on, but I think most little girls did. He has his own struggle in the sense that he got his position out of nepotism and is eager to prove himself and do a good job. He's an excellent commanding officer, he's brave, and knows when to send a soldier home when they're not cutting it, but is willing to give people who prove themselves a chance. There's no bullshit posturing, he just knows how to exert his authority as an officer, and knows when to admit someone has done good even if they disobey him. Sure, he does give Mulan shit over not belonging, and yes, that is very much connected to the prejudice he's grown up with, but I always read this as mostly his own hurt with being deceived by someone he trusted. He is wrong for telling Mulan that she doesn't belong, but again, he gets over it very quickly and is willing to admit when he's wrong. He's not a perfect human, but he is a good man and is partially responsible for Mulan becoming the hero she is. Next onto Yao, Ling and Qinpo. These guys are the best friends ever. Sure, they are posturing idiots at the beginning, but this is an environment where being tough is a necessity. But once Mulan proves herself as a competent soldier, they are right up front cheering her on. When it looks like Shang is going to execute her, their instinct is to stop it, but they can't because he's their commanding officer. It is the law, and they would probably be killed alongside her, or at the very least sent home in disgrace. I mean, look at how sad they are when she's not there anymore. And when the Huns arrive and she tells them she has an idea, they immediately drop what they're doing and go to follow her because they know how crafty she is and they trust her. They don't hesitate to masquerade as concubines for their country. These guys are not only the best buddies ever, but they are heroes. I don't have a lot to say about the Emperor except that this old guy is a badass. He is being held at sword point by this man mountain, and all he has to do is bow, and he says this:
"No matter how the wind howls, the mountain cannot bow to it."
And he is wise enough to acknowledge that while Mulan broke the law,
"You have saved us all."
Love him. And the last one here is Mulan's dad. This guy is the best Disney dad. He is where Mulan gets her iron will from. He is a traditional man, but he doesn't let that get in the way of loving his daughter who doesn't fit into those traditional ideals and seeing her for how special she is. I mean, she comes back and gives him the crest of his country's leader and the weapon of his country's greatest enemy, and he doesn't care because his little girl's home and that's all he really wanted. God, I love this guy. And before I go, I just wanted to say how I feel about Mulan. I actually related to her a lot because I was never really into or particularly good at the things most girls wear, like makeup and fashion. And I do not think that makes me a better person, absolutely not. I really admire these girls who put in so much effort into things that, let's face it, do genuinely affect our lives and how people perceive you. But I was just never good at it. I bonded a lot with my dad at a young age over his old dusty Marvel comics, and I am definitely someone who constantly has her head in the clouds and forgets basic things. But at the same time, I was still very feminine. And Mulan showed me that you don't have to be one or the other, because Mulan is a very, very feminine character. And I hate all these hashtag strong female characters who have to be stone-faced, harsh, uncompromising, and perfect, because that's not what we should be teaching girls. Mulan wasn't stronger or faster than the guys. She wasn't even naturally athletically gifted. She was just brave, strong-willed, and a bit of an outside-the-box thinker, which turned out to be exactly what the army needed. It told girls that you can do the things the guys do, you just have to find your own way to achieve it. You may have to do it differently, and you most definitely will have to work harder, but you can do it. Just don't expect it to be easy. You can be both feminine and badass at the same time. This exemplified by the fact that Mulan succeeds at being a soldier, but utterly fails at being a man, which is where the film's best comedy comes from.
You know how it is when you get those manly urges, and you just gotta kill something.
These are the kinds of icons we should be showing our children, not girls with chi powers or whatever that we will never have. Work hard, be brave, and if you have to work harder than everyone else, well, that is just something you have to do. So yeah guys, I know this wasn't like my usual content, I just kept seeing reviews of the new Mulan movie come up on my YouTube recommendation feed, and constantly skipping over them just to see them pop up again was driving me crazy. So I just wanted to rant about how it's the public's fault that these movies exist. But that got me thinking about Mulan and how influential it was on me and how much I truly loved every single character in that movie, and how you don't need to bring other characters down to make your main character look good. You don't need to make your main character perfect to make them strong. This is how we should be approaching storytelling. And those of you who are regular viewers of my content already know I love comic books and I love how they tell old stories in new ways, but I really wish we had more characters like this, like all these people being created today, and that we stop funding poor imitations of the things we love. So thank you for listening to this projectile vomit of feelings. I'm sorry that it's not my usual content, but this is just something that really annoys me. So Thank you for giving me the time of day and listening to it. If you've got this far, please like and subscribe, and we shall return to our usual programming shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and have a good night.